What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boyce. You're here for another Facts Project. Today, we have two very special guests. We are here to talk about news from the Fallout for Image Comics that's going to be released next week, June 25th. I have Chris Condon and I have Jeffrey Allen Love. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Look, it's good to have both of you here because I feel like I had a chance to read this about a month ago. And I got to say, as far as like the details and as well as the premise of this particular story, I was totally enamored by what the focus was. And I can't wait to see more. It was kind of like one of those books where like I read the all the way to the end and I'm like, damn, I got a lot of questions. So I'm glad that both of you are here for one. First question, though, if I can. The whole obstacle of Southern Nevada and their atomic tests that were happening around like the 1960s. Although this is purely fictional, what basically brought the two of you to basically come to this particular setting?
Well, for myself, I originally had planned on doing a different sort of story. It was always going to be about government testing. Some sort of government test that's gone awry. And originally it was actually going to be set in New Hampshire and it was going to be some, army base, something happens to an army base there. But then I started, thinking more and more about it. And I, was at the time that I was writing the first arc of That Texas Blood, was working in a setting that was like Southern Nevada to a certain extent, and an arid place, desolate. And that, I thought it would be a perfect setting for it. And in fact, I mean, I think that it's much more evocative of the era to have it set in Nevada, which I think that we all know the look of those videos of those old reels of weapons tests,
Yeah.
in black and white. And they're always happening in a desolate area, somewhere off the beaten track, and so I thought it was just a perfect setting for it. So that's from my own perspective, that's what I did. But if Jeff wants to jump in.
Sure.
I think it's my artwork probably lends itself to big open spaces, big vistas. A lot of my own books that I've written have had sort of this sort of Mobius, the French comic artist, sort of wasteland. And in a way, it's an interesting sort of like a container story, like a lot of times you'll have like, for budget reasons, films will have a container, like it only happens in this house or it only happens in this locked room or whatever to keep the budget down. And it's interesting that we kind of pick like an unending yet closed container. And it allows, I think, like the setting to really be an emotional part of the story and to have these people surrounded by this vast emptiness allows me to sort of really zoom in, zoom out, and sort of play with these feelings of people confronted by nature, the weapon, their small place in the world. So it's a really fun environment to play with storytelling wise.
Absolutely. Now, when we're getting into the story and we start to meet sort of the characters that are built in here, one particularly stands out almost in the second page, and that is General Sheridan McCoy, who by design is probably one of the creepiest characters, and he's only particularly shown like in the first 4 pages, but yet he has such an impact emotionally, basically of how this story is basically pretty much going to bold over. As far as character design, there's one particular panel, I think that, of course, that Jeffrey put together that shows him, of course, staring at this porous rock that you described at the end of this story. But you see like his chin staring out, and you almost feel as though he is hypnotized by this thing, the way that he's particularly looking at it. First and foremost, how how did you want to describe him character design wise? And secondly, what exactly did you want his premise for this entire story to be?
I think I'll do the first part and let Chris do the
Yeah.
second one.
Sure.
The story maybe
Mhm.
for the Um, I think with the way that I work, which is very heavily shaped based, that it's important that everybody sort of recognized at a distance. And so to have you're kind of playing off of stereotypes of what people expect. Like what does an evil character look like? What does a good character look like? What does a happy person look like? And so in a way, it was me taking memories of people that I didn't like in the past, and also, but how can I bring in sort of this? There's someone who does it really well, Nick Dragata. He's working on Absolute Batman now, but he did East of West too, and he really melded his storytelling with anime storytelling, where there's kind of like a repeating bad guy face, and there's a repeating good person face, and there's a repeating. And I sort of took that from him and said, okay, what does my bad guy look like? It looks like this, and made sure that you can sort of even if it's a complete silhouette, you'd be able to tell to tell who it is and sort of their intention.
Hmm.
Over to you, Chris.
Yeah. Could you repeat the question?
Oh, no,
I got
well,
lost in Jeff's answer.
it's all right. That was an excellent answer. As I wanted to basically understand General McCoy's premise for this entire story.
Yeah.
I took the look that he had in that one particular panel where he's looking at that porous rock, and
Yeah.
it's like that particularly dictates the rest of the series, whether we want to or not. So it's like, where exactly did you want his character to go to?
Yeah. So, um, I mean, there's some of it goes into spoiler territory, so I'm gonna
Oh,
try to
okay.
avoid that.
All
But
right.
I do think that as somebody who is in charge of uh, a top secret facility, and on top of that, has many men at his beck and call. I think that it's quite a scary thing to have that person become possessed, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
by something, and that's exactly what's happening in this situation. Is that he is being, um, something is influencing him, and I think that that's quite an interesting premise to approach a character like this with. I mean, we see it to a certain extent, obviously, in something like Doctor Strangelove, with General Jack D. Ripper. Um, and I think that that's something that we're playing with here, but sort of making it less of he's just lost his marbles, and more, giving something that's actually affecting him. And it turns out to be kind of timely too. Um,
True.
but
I felt as though, like, when I read it in the beginning, okay, their higher authority is senile,
yeah,
but then
it's,
later on you're looking at it and it's like, no.
yeah. No, I mean he's aware of what he's doing, and he's doing it willingly, and he's he's screwing things up for everybody. Basically, is that and he from his perspective, he wants to create a new world order essentially. Um, and yeah, so that it becomes this um thing where people are willingly allowing this thing to happen.
Mm,
And there's this one man, Otis, who recognizes that this is not the way that things should be. This is not normal, and I need to do something about it. And that's where we get the real the drama of the series really is between these two. Otis, who is running from his superior officer, which is really what the series is about at the end of the
yeah.
day.
I can say for myself, because I'm former military, that I've dealt with a couple higher superior officers that have probably not necessarily pushed my buttons, but have like definitely said things that be like, no, that's not an order that I want to take. This
Yeah,
necessarily is this is something that I don't want to do.
yeah.
So there's one other particular panel that I wanted to talk about, and it doesn't have to do with Otis Fallows, but it actually has to do with Corporal Finney.
Okay.
Now this panel was probably the scariest in detail of how this was written, because it's the context between General McCoy and Corporal Finney, to where he's basically telling him, you know, you're about to meet the end of history. And Corporal Finney, of course, he has to be acknowledgeable of what he's talking about. So he's just listening and peering his head, and he's like, "What if I was to tell you that today is that day? Today's a new day. Well, today's the day you're going to be baptized." That's almost like a scary moment to be told that from your
Yeah.
superiors.
Yeah, I mean it's tantamount to somebody putting a gun to your head, you
Right.
know. It's this is the end, you know, you're faced with the end of something, and that's a pretty scary thought. I think change in general is usually a pretty scary thing. Especially when that change is forced upon you, which is, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, I think that that's what every citizen deals with from a government. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's a good government or a bad government. It's, you know, your life is dictated by what's happening in the government to a certain extent.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's a really I mean, I wanted it to be kind of, you know, a scary moment, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think that it's you know, I mean, again, to have this person in a position of power abusing that power and you know, saying something that you know isn't right and is confusing to you in those moments, and you know, that's a pretty scary thing to deal with. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, somebody telling you, asking you what day it is, and you saying Tuesday, and they go, no, it's not.
Right.
It's like, that's, you know, obviously your assumption is that it's Tuesday because you know it's Tuesday. And when somebody who's in a higher position than you, somebody who has power over you, you know, that's a pretty frightening thing. And yeah, so yeah, I hoped that it would be scary, but I think Jeff really, um, you know, he's the one who's selling it at the end of the day.
For sure.
I'm just delivering the meat. He's got to cook it. But I think that that page is fantastic. I think all the stuff with Corporal Finney and General McCoy is fantastic in the issue.
Definitely.
I think if you look at just people in general, I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you are like maybe walking in a city street and you see someone with a knife and you're like, your brain is trying to tell you they don't have a knife. And all the people around you are like just walking as if it's normal. And like, and maybe there's one person who's like, oh my God, that person has a knife. Like they are like, you know, getting ready to do something. But
Mhm.
the human brain and human people will like do, it will just do its utmost to say, this is normal, this isn't what you think it is. Just keep doing what you would normally do. And I think that that's what you know, we're seeing is that like everybody's trying to convince themselves that this is normal. That like for somehow this is just like a normal day at the office. And you know, General McCoy is not going nuts right now. Like this is all part of just another day in the military. And but somebody has to be the one who's like, hold on, like this is not this is crazy. And that's sort of the what's happening for me in the story is that I've heard the inciting incident of a story called a change bomb, and that's kind of what's happening here. You know, it's the your life is, you know, somebody tosses something into your life and it explodes and everything changes.
Mm.
It's funny because I looked at this entire story as the act of being subordinate, and I totally understood, especially like in the next coming panels, because there's the test site where they're all being told about they're we're about to conduct an atomic bomb test, and everybody is being subordinate. Everybody is paying attention. Everybody is like, okay, this is what we have to do. We got to just follow these orders and continue to just follow along with what is being told here. All the while, Private Follows is the only one that's ears perked up and is looking at the tower and is like, yeah, that's too close. Do you see that? No. Like he's trying to like nobody sees this but me. Nobody. Like we're way too close. So like even in the fall in of the rest of the soldiers that are pretty much in line,
Mm.
nobody else is catching it. Even though he's saying it in his mind, or better yet, maybe he wants to react to the other soldiers that are next to him, to the left and the right of him. But everybody's so geared in. And the thing is, and I'm thinking to myself, I've definitely been in these situations to where
Yeah.
I want to question something. I know I have the question in my head. I want to say it out loud, but I can't.
Well, it's an uncomfortable position to be put into, you know, where you have to be the odd man out. You have to make yourself different than everybody else. Because I think that human beings, at the end of the day, like, as a species, I think that we probably want to blend in, be a part of the community, um, you know, use other people around us to bolster us up. And I think that once you step out of that group, out of that community, and you stand on your own. I think that that's a pretty tough thing to do, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I think that Otis is a person who has in his life has met with adversity. So he's somebody who is not adverse to stepping out
Hmm.
and saying what needs to be said. He probably has very healthy relationships when he does have them.
Of course.
um,
Well,
but
well,
no, I think that it's like it's a scary thing. I think that a lot of the things that are happening in this issue are scary things. I mean, whether or not they're actually like spooky,
mhm.
I think that being put in that position, I think that it's a thrilling position to be put into. I mean, it's a dramatic moment to be put into. And yeah, he's, really, I think that at the end of the day, this story is kind of about insubordination as well.
It's actually very, yes.
So it's about sometimes you have to break the rules. You have to break some eggs to make an omelet, that
Yeah.
sort of,
Obviously, as comics being a visual medium, between the two of you, the dynamic that I see within this story, you
yeah,
actually can tell when Otis is taking his time to think about what's happening
yeah,
from panel to panel. Normally, you'll see a panel, somebody says something, panel two, somebody saying something else. You actually like notice that
yeah.
Otis is like, wait. And then like his reaction time is getting slower, but he knows like he's actually like taking time to think about what he's going to say or what he's going to do.
Yeah. We had posted on the image site that like sort of a process piece about writing and drawing the first what was it, 7 pages, I think.
Yeah.
So and in doing that, one of the things that we talked about was how we had built the front half of the book, which is it's like very much like those seconds counting down to the bomb dropping. And the whole
Mhm.
thing is built in that way where it's sort of like, you're at 15 and everything seems like it's ahead of you. And then by the time you're at 5, 4, and 3, and 2, and 1, it's like all of a sudden everything is just like working at a clip,
Yeah,
and that's how the opening is built. And I think that Jeff did like knocked it out of the park with that to really get that momentum, and to know which for example, there's a panel of Otis. He's just like isolated against the background. He could have done it in like an extreme close up, but instead he's doing it at this, um, you know, medium wide shot, and it really works fantastically to show the claustrophobia or the how alone Otis is in this decision.
for sure.
Yeah, I
Jeffrey,
think
I gotta give you some kudos though. You probably did a little bit of background on this, but you've highly accomplished the way to draw out an M17 mask from the 1960s.
yeah. Well, I come from a military family, so it's important for me to get those details right, and so that added another layer for me to the story of sort of bringing my 1980s, 1990s experience in the military, being overseas. Not myself, but my father being in the military. Um, Bringing those experiences to that, which is again a way of taking any story and making it meaningful to you, is to bring your personal emotions and your personal past things and find ways to bring that into the story. So yeah, research was important to me, but also it's important, but it's also not. You have to know when to bend things for dramatic storytelling purposes. And so the first issue, I definitely found myself bouncing back and forth between, do I need to like go down a more of a rabbit hole of research for this, or can I do what feels right to me? And I really battled that in the first issue, and in this from the second issue on, I've gone more with my gut. And in part, it's easier because a lot of the research has already been done for the first issue, but um, yeah, like research is important, but not to the level of Tom Clancy, you know, like people writing fan letters telling him he got the wrong, lug nut on a suppressor or something, you know.
Right, right, right.
Like,
Now, the double, I guess, what is it? The double page spread panel of the
Yeah.
explosion itself. First off, fabulous work. Um, the way that that kicks off, because it's almost two things happening simultaneously. One, the explosion. Second, Private Follows is getting cussed out.
Yeah.
So, so imagine in the most uncanny situation, a nuclear bomb just went off, and
yeah,
yet all the while, you for basically questioning what's happening, you're getting cussed out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's two things there, and one of those things is that this is a routine operation for these people. I mean, they've done this
Yeah,
before, so it's like it's just another day in the park. But I do think that, it's fun to juxtapose sort of explosive moments with explosive, scenes that are happening. I think that that makes it a really interesting way to depict it. Um, but yeah, it's that double page spread is, I think that it's evocative of, where Otis is at in that moment in his life as well. It's sort of, it doubles, which is always nice too.
excellent, excellent.
I have to come in and also say that for people saying how nice the art is for the story, a lot of that is me working off of Chris's script because he does write panel by panel description, and so while I feel free to occasionally suggest things, for the most part, I'm really sticking to Chris's beat breakdown of the pages, and so a lot of that sort of propulsiveness of the plot, but also this sort of spacing that you were talking about of where you can see when the character's digesting and thinking about it. It's something that attracted me to Chris's writing from That Texas Blood is that it's a super fascinating story that you're sucked into, but there's also like an openness to it to where you're spending more time with the characters and so I have to say that, for people looking at the art and thinking, "Oh, Jeff did such a great job on the storytelling," it's a team, and Chris did a lot of heavy lifting there too.
Absolutely. Now, is there, and this is going to be a silly question. Is there a is there any type of symbolization with the rabbit that I keep seeing throughout the book?
Uh, Run.
Yeah, it's almost like he's like the
I think
trigger
that's
on them.
about the only message for it. But yeah, I mean, if you're reading something into it, I'd love to hear what it is. But yeah, I love sometimes, especially with the internet, because it's, you can hear from anybody from any place,
Easter eggs.
at any time. And, sometimes I read things that people say about my work and, they read things into it that I never thought. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good.
Mhm.
But it's not wasn't my intention.
Right.
But yeah, to me, it was just, let's A, have him get thrown out of a Jeep, and then also B, like, let's get him on his feet and he's got to run. And, what's the perfect animal for that?
For me, I saw it as Otis's respect for life. It would have
Yeah.
been easy to say like, I'm fleeing from disaster, and sorry, bunny, but splat. You know,
Yeah.
And so for me, it was sort of a character, characters revealed through action. And for me, that was Otis sort of revealing, like, even in this direst of moment, he can't help but say, I just can't run over a rabbit. I can't do
Right,
it.
right. He was actually helping it along, just
Yeah.
like, come on,
Yeah.
hurry up. Now, as this whole well, I'm not going to give any spoilers out there. This is the first issue. But as this explosion happens and what occurs after the fact, um, still, even in that type of moment, everybody that is pretty much not reacting to what has pretty much just happened is still acting like soldiers, which I found to be like fascinating. It's like they're all staring at this happening. That one of their fellow soldiers is just so like yakking his guts out, and it's
Yeah.
pretty much having a change happening to him, and nobody's moving.
Yeah.
So there's a shock, but I was like, maybe it's not even probably shock. it's just like they're still just falling in line.
I think those moments are shocking. I do think that people kind of freeze or shut it out, and I think that that's just a very human reaction to these sorts of things. I mean, you know, you can see really horrible things and not have it hit you for a couple days, you know.
Oh,
It's weird, but that's, how people are, and I think that that's probably how these soldiers are thinking. It's just, oh, he's just being, I think it's Private Russo. I think Russo's being Russo right now,
yeah.
not really like, yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all that I think about that.
Okay. Now is the chase scene, the
Hmm.
him actually like physically getting away.
Yeah.
I've now come to realize that the who he's being chased by, of course, a lot of these fellow soldiers and everything like that. Um, they have now gained an ability that we didn't think that they had. They've almost administered a faster way of travel. It's almost like they whatever's hit them gave them almost like a super speed.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering when we get to the end of this series, how far is this diner from the blast site?
Let's say it's pretty close, but yeah, it's a distance. There's also other reasons why certain things take a certain amount of time throughout the series, which we'll get into, which obviously is not necessarily spoilery, but it's basically, they're not the only people that live in this area. There are other people. And if this horde, if their reason for existing is to spread whatever infection they have,
Right.
I think that that's, the diner wouldn't necessarily be like top priority. Put it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if I've been on the base where munitions, of course, go off and everybody's just pretty much going on about their normal day. I could just imagine you just having breakfast and yeah, just doing bomb testings. It's fine. Don't worry about
Yeah. Yeah, it's very mundane.
Yeah. Now, Jeffrey, that end scene of him standing in the door, telling everybody to board the windows up, and pretty much like we gotta like seal this up because there's something coming. Like, how did you feel like you wanted to paint that scene? Because the horror that he experienced now has to transfer into that diner.
Yeah, it's more just I was thinking of it as, it was a page turn, so it's important always to sort of like have like it, be a dramatic moment. But it was also it's a forward, it's a pointer to the next issue.
Yeah.
And so it's leaving you with this moment of like, you know, it's kind of, it's kind of like I'm doing a cover panel at Heroes Con tomorrow or Saturday, and I've been thinking a lot about covers. And for me, like that, the last page is kind of a cover pre-cover for like the second issue. And what it's doing is that it's promising you that you will have the experience you hope in the next issue.
Mm,
And to me, that is like when, as a kid, and now even as an adult, if I go to a bookstore, if I go to a comic book shop, if I go to a movie, if I see a poster for a movie, I want it to tell me that I'm going to have the experience I hope to have. That this is a book I'm going to fall in love with, that this is a comic I'm going to fall in love with. And that's kind of like what I want that page to do is I want it to promise the reader that if you go to issue 2, you're going to get the experience you hope for, that this could be a book that you fall in love with. And that's all of art making, and what we're doing is just like we're telling people like this is the experience that we are promising you and we want you to have. Just trust us and go with it. And I hope that that's what happens.
absolutely. Now, Hassan Oates Hal, playing another big role along with the two of you in putting this
Yeah.
book together. The typewriter sequence of the government memo that follows that particular panel that we just talked about.
Mhm.
I gotta give him kudos. I was like, that looks legit.
So the back matter is actually designed by a guy named Michael Tivey.
Okay.
Um, So Mike Tivey and I have been friends since preschool, and we've always created things together. So it's kind of funny that, we get to do this literally, I don't know, 29, 30 years into our friendship.
Nice.
So but yeah, I brought him on board. He had done some stuff for me for that Texas Blood and the Anfield Game Massacre. Small things. Jacob designs all the back matter for those series, but there was one issue in volume 2 of that Texas Blood that Jake just didn't have the time to do. So I was like, well, I think I might know a guy, and I asked Mike if he wanted to do it, and he did. And so I just sat with him in his office in his house and just, worked on it. Just, we both just sat there and kind of throw ideas back and forth and just build this thing out.
Mm.
And like, can we try to dirty it up? Can we do this? Can we do that? And so that's all Mike. I mean, Mike's really excellent at that kind of stuff. He loves old stuff, vintage stuff. I mean, that's like you go into his house and it's like like what's that show that was on History Channel, like the Pawn Star? No, not Pawn Stars, like American Pickers or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
where it's like all like the coolest like ephemera from across like mid-century to like the 1930s. Mike's like got all that sort of stuff. So all that stuff sort of feeds into the way that he designs these back matter pages, and he's just really excellent at it and making it feel authentic and real, and pushing the boundaries where you can go with this stuff and have it be a part of the story. But yeah, so I approached him about doing this, and I think Haas's lettering is done in such a way that it complements Jeff's work and also feels a part of the artwork,
Hmm.
uh, rather than sort of sitting on top of it. And in that way, I think that his lettering also has that same sort of like authentic vibe, and it all informed what Mike did later with the back matter. But yeah, so the back matter was actually Mike Tivey, and he did the menu as well. And I
Oh,
hope
the
people
eat at
like
Joe's.
check all that stuff out, and
Yeah.
like, if there's a phone number that pops up, maybe you should try to call it. I don't know.
Oh
Call
my
me crazy.
He left No, I saw the eat at Joe's menu. Now, as far as uh you wanted to transfer this, like make this almost like a living thing, you created this into a website, the both of you.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, again, Mike was
Is that Mike too?
so we were sitting there and going, well, what can we do? Because we love doing the back matter, and it's like, well, I thought it would be nice to have like a site that works as both an in-universe engine and then also as a resource about the book.
Hmm.
So that was kind of the idea behind it. And then yeah, I always loved like immersive, world building growing up. I always thought it was really cool, like all the J.J. Abrams stuff, like before he poisoned himself with Star Wars. He was really innovative with all that stuff, and I loved it. Cloverfield, and there was a movie Super 8 that
Yeah,
there was
I
like
remember Super 8.
early on there was like something. It was like a website, and you'd go in there and put your email, and they'd send you stuff. So we kind of wanted to give that kind of a feeling for it, and the idea is really to just immerse people into the universe of the book, even before they picked up an issue. So, you can live in that world, you can find clues for where things are going to go, or just, learn about this universe that this book takes place in, and yeah, you could do it all on this website, and then when you pick up the book, it's like, okay, I'm already familiar with this.
Right.
And hopefully that'll help, inform the reading of it. So
Definitely. Jeffrey, you talked about something in another book where your creative career being pain management. I actually have this book here.
Oh, cool.
So
Thank you.
good book.
look, it's funny because when Chris said he wanted to put you on, I was like, well, I've had this book for like a couple months now, so I gotta say, you talk about your art style in here. You talk about the color black, being done in different shades. how that's basically put across. But you also talked about your creative career being pain management for you, like
Yeah.
where that's basically been like a serious motive for what you do creatively. As far as this process, how do you feel like that's now evolved a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah. The thing with pain management for any creative career, I think, is that you have to be able to put up with the pain of being bad long enough to get good.
Right.
And that applies to writing, it applies to art, and it really is, you have to learn how to live with the pain. And I'm 47. I've had like a fairly successful career. I make my living as an artist, and um, I could be closer to retirement than starting another career in comics, because comics is so hard that it's like I'm putting my hand in that box, like in Dune, or like they have the needle to my neck, or Crawl. Crawl is the one where he puts the hand in like a box and there's some alien creature that causes pain.
Right.
But
Right.
the amount of pain that you have trying to make comics is just another level, because it is so hard. But that's cool. Like in the end, like you learn to like embrace it and embrace challenge, a life worth living, is really like doing hard things and trying to get good at them. And for me at least. And so I've really maybe like the last 20 years have prepared me for this gauntlet of comics and how tough it is. But it's also really rewarding and a lot of fun to try to find my way through it.
Absolutely, man. That's great. That's great. Now, I heard you both. Are you both going to Heroes Con?
I am
Just me.
not, unfortunately. Just Jeff.
Oh. Now, Jeffrey, you talked about the doing the cover panel over at Heroes Con. Are you like entering that into like a contest? Because I know they
Oh
do.
no, there's
They
a
do
there's
one
like a
there.
panel where they have people talk about doing covers, and I assume people can ask questions and things. And I was just trying to think like, what is it that I can bring of value to this? Because um, I think that I could do a cover for any comic and make it look amazing. However,
I agree.
a lot of the people that are in charge of larger companies are not art people; they're lawyers or they're business people. And so I'm viewed more as a variant, or a like one in 50 sort of. I'm perfect for every like one in every 50 bucks or something. Um, and so that's what really got me thinking about, what is it that I can bring to a panel of people talking about covers, and for me it's just uh, have a personal voice in your art, and try to give them what they're hoping they get.
True. Now, this is a was a 5, 6 issue mini series,
6 issues, yeah.
6 issues. Now, um, it without any spoilers, where do we go in issue 2?
We are in the diner at that point. So we get to meet everybody in the diner, and there's a struggle in the diner. Let's put it that way. There's a struggle in the diner, and then there's also an outside force, obviously, that's affecting things. And you meet new characters and get to explore their lives, and
Right.
that's something that we're going to be introducing every issue with, which is something that I used in Green Arrow, and I ended up liking it a lot, which was sort of build in like a prologue to every issue,
Mm-hmm.
because it is tough. It's a little easier in indie stuff, in particular like a book like this, where we are dictating how many pages we're going to be doing per issue. And so I tend to write 22 to 24 pages for these issues. Probably skew more towards 24. Um, in a typical comic, you have 20 pages to tell a story. And so, utilizing back matter and a prologue for each issue, it gives you a little bit more runway, I think. So, um, and it also recenters people, because if you think about it, like there's a month between issues, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think people are sitting there on, any particular Wednesday and going, let me grab that past issue so I know where I'm at right now. I think that they probably pick up the issue, and then they figure out, okay, oh yeah, that this guy was here at this time and all that. And doing these prologues where you're introduced to a whole new scene in this world, and get introduced to these characters and to get to explore them just a little bit more. I think that it helps recenter you in that universe so you get there without even having to, live in the actual progressive narrative. Yeah, so but yeah, so I build those out, and so we get to explore, all these new characters in issue 2. So I'm really excited about that, and Jeff did a phenomenal job in issue, and he gets better and better with each issue. It's
Can't wait.
like issue 2 is better than issue 1, and I was like, how is this possible? And then issue 3 comes in, and I'm like, oh my God, this is one of my all-time favorite double page spreads. And then, issue 4 is amazing, and issue 5, which I've actually just sent to Jeff.
Mm.
I'm a little behind on where I need to be on it, um, but issue 5 has some amazing stuff, and I can't wait to see what he's gonna, do with that. I think that it's gonna be really exciting. There's a lot of great imagery, for him to play with. So,
Do you feel like there's a lot more freedom doing your own creator own work?
I mean, it's really just us doing
Yeah.
things. Me, Jeff, and Mike, really. I mean, Haas, does his work, and then sends it over too. So I mean, but it's really just the three of us, the four of us, just doing our own thing. There's nobody from Image telling us we need to do something a certain way.
All right.
We don't work with an editor, so there's no editor telling us that we need to change X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm.
It would be better with the rabbit in this area of the panel, things like that. We're the ones calling all those shots. And so you're really getting it's the most direct line to a creator that you can have, I think. I think that's kind of an exciting thing. There's no not too many cooks in this kitchen, it's just a few of us, and you're really seeing what we want it to do. So yeah, there's absolutely freedom. It has its downsides at times, but because you are your own PR machine.
Yeah,
And when you're not on any social media, it's a little tough. So, it
I
involves
agree.
talking to a lot of shops and trying to talk to people about it. And every time I talk to somebody, I bring up, hey, have you heard about this book? It looks amazing. And I'll literally pull out issue 1, show everybody like the pages and just be like, it looks like nothing else out there. Um, but yeah, it's completely us, and we complete freedom. I'd love to hear what Jeff has to say about that, especially because he's coming into doing direct market. He's typically done book market. So it's kind of
Yeah,
an interesting place for him to be at, I think.
yeah, I think it's in illustration and in creative careers where you or creative projects where you have a lot of oversight, you can find really creative and fun ways to make it work and make it look cool and to have it still be your voice.
Yeah.
But it can be a struggle too. And to be working on a project like this where I'm not really second guessing myself of like, is the editor going to understand what I'm doing here? Is the editor going to, get upset, or question or want me to change things? And I'm working traditionally, so that would be a huge hassle for me. But, and I'm not much of like a Photoshop guy either. So, that's it's nice to have that sort of like it's up to you. And that's actually like one of the best things about writing and making comics and making art and making things is that there comes a point in your career where you realize like all that's standing between you and the career, the thing that you hope to have in your life is like making good stuff.
Yeah.
Just make it as good as you can. And that you actually kind of have the power over that.
Mhm.
Like, sure, it helps to have mentors and it helps to have people that kind of like help you along the way and point out some things to look out for. But it really is up to you to like just try to make something as great as you can and see if it floats. And if it floats, then like you just keep going. So to me, having this sort of, I wouldn't say that I mean, I actually love having Chris be the writer and have me have to like, respond to that and sort of riff off of what he's doing because
Yeah, we're
that,
jamming.
yeah, we're just jamming, man. And I'm creating some of the best art that I've ever done because I'm working with Chris, I think. And that is exciting to me. And it will help me in my own work going forward and it'll help me with stuff I do with Chris in the future. And so for me, this is like the perfect project at the perfect time. It's awesome. I love it.
Excellent. Now, who sought who out? Like when y'all decided to want to do this
I
project,
don't
like
know.
how, like,
I think it was me. I love Chris's writing, and I think people thought that I was just having a career that like I'm making a living doing, my art and putting books out. And I don't think that people knew that I wanted to do comics really. And I kept like, and I'd never gone to shows. And I went to a show and was talking to people. And I was like, no, actually, I really would love to do comics. Like I would love to do direct marketed work. So I feel like people didn't know that I wanted to do it. And so when I did a cover for that Texas Blood and Chris and I started emailing, I just, was like, if you ever want to, like talk about doing something, I'd love to. And I think one thing that sets me apart too is that I don't need a page rate. Like I can take on a book like the one we're doing and not get paid. I haven't gotten paid at all for it yet. Neither is Chris.
Yeah.
Like we're burning money here. But it's
Same deal with Jacob too. It's
yeah.
like, and that's the great thing about these image books is not to, sorry, not to step on your answer. I
No,
just wanted
no,
to
no,
say
yeah.
that. I mean, it's like these are works of love, and I think that every creator that does an image book feels that way. Wouldn't have any other way. But these are truly works of love. I mean, we would have done this if, nobody was reading it.
Yeah.
It's just incredible fun for us to be able to do this. I mean, it's obviously has some things to say, it's dramatic and heavy sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's just fun. Just so much fun to do
Yeah.
this.
I think like I was maybe like working on the third issue, and I had completely forgotten that I was doing anything other than just making a comic with Chris. Like I
Yeah.
didn't, I wasn't thinking about, oh, at some point it'll be published or whatever. It was just every day I go to work and I just make this book with Chris, and we're having fun. And like like for some reason my brain just had forgotten or put out of mind that like at some point the goal of this is to like put it in shops and have people hopefully read it and see where it goes. But for some reason it was just we were having a lot of fun and just making books. So
Yeah.
that's another benefit of the image and the indie owned and creator owned stuff is just you can really just have fun and really enjoy the process.
yeah, to see how much fun you guys are having, like putting this book together. That's refreshing, other than, dealing with, like, I guess the pressure of deadlines and
Yeah.
basically like dealing with marketing and promotion once it actually like happens and everything. Like so much so that you talked about that you got so caught up in it, you just realized, oh yeah, by the way, we're actually are putting out a book.
Yeah, I think it's obviously, I mean, I think you always want to sell, you always want to have
Of
a book
course.
that's a hit. But I think that, it's funny because I do think that we would be doing this if we were doing it alone in a room somewhere. It's just like this is just we just love this book so much. Um and it's we're just really fortunate to be able to do this. I mean, I feel like that about the big two work I'm doing as well. I'm just really lucky to be here, lucky to be doing this. I mean, what better job than, I like to say that with those jobs, I'm playing with somebody else's toys, but when I'm doing, an image book, I'm playing with my own toys. These are the guys that I, keep in a drawer somewhere and I pull out, and, it's just so fun. Uh, really.
For sure. Well, for the both of you, I thank the two of you for being here. I can't wait for everybody to get a chance to see exactly what I read when this book drops next week. And of course, looking into the entire series in its totality. So I appreciate you guys like basically giving me your kind words about how this basically this was structured, how this functions, and how it's going to go forth. Because your dynamic is great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for having us, James.
Absolutely. So for everybody here at the Facts Project, Chris Condon, Jeffrey Allen Love, news from the Fallout is going to be dropping next week, June 25th. Am I saying
June
that correctly?
25th.
June 25th, new comic book day. So for everybody out there, please go ahead and get that. For everybody out there, we will see you guys next week, and we are out.